Finally.
Finally.
It's my go. God! Oh, it's bigger
Yes.
on the inside
Look, we need to concentrate.
than it is
Yep, I know where you're going with this, but I need you to calm down.
on the outside.
Oh, you certainly grasped the essentials.
My entire understanding of physical space has been transformed. Three-dimensional Euclidean geometry has been torn up, thrown in the air, and snubbed to death. My grasp of the universal constants of physical reality has been changed forever. Sorry. I've always wanted to see that done properly.
Would you like...
Peter Capaldi! So, Peter Capaldi was my first new Doctor. As I said before, I got into Doctor Who pretty much the tail end of Matt Smith's era. So, actually experiencing a new Doctor was a first for me. I'm like, okay, how's it go? Oh, people keep saying he's too old. I don't know if you guys noticed, but William Hartnell was pretty much old as dirt. Bless him. But okay, let's just call it what it was. A lot of people weren't happy that he wasn't yummy. And it turns out that's not true because this exists.
Since you've been the Doctor, you've appealed to a certain audience. And I want to know, over in America, we call somebody like that the silver fox.
The ladies love some 12th Doctor. Alright, but anyway, Moffat's time with the 12th Doctor, I think, is fun. It's not perfect. There's a lot of good moments. There's some misses. Hybrid! Oh, something stupid in my throat. Oh. But overall, I'd like to think this is just a very solid era. It is a bit reminiscent on some level of the 5th Doctor's era. There's a lot of good ideas here, some good stories. Maybe not everything reinvents the wheel, but it gets the job done. Alright, but at the same time, though, we have a very interesting incarnation of the Doctor. An incarnation that I think tries to sort of conclude the Time War era of the Doctor's life. So effectively, this is the conclusion of a now 4-incarnation story arc. Before, it gets ruined by... We'll get to that later. Okay, let's get into it with our first one. Clara. So, it's important to note that Clara and the 12th Doctor is very different from Clara and the 11th Doctor. Namely, that Clara, in a lot of ways, is having to adjust to a new Doctor. She spent a lot of time with the 11th Doctor. Alright, they grew close, they had fun, and, let's be honest, it got romantic. It did. Did we all forget that little short they did? Where, she pretty much says, I didn't count on falling in love. And then Trenzalore happened. It was pretty much obvious. It was pretty obvious that there was this idea that on some level, Clara did fancy the 11th Doctor.
Because he's brilliant, and he's funny and mad, and best of all, he really needs you. The trick is, don't fall in love. I do that trick quite a lot, sometimes twice a day.
And now she has to deal with the 12th Doctor, alright? And I think the biggest difference is now that dynamic has changed. It's interesting because it's a fun change from 9 and from Rose and the Doctor. So if you look at Rose, she pretty much did like the 9th Doctor. She probably even saw him as like a surrogate dad. But then he becomes David Tennant and the whole dynamic changes. Depending on how you go with it. It's more obvious that, she fancies the 10th Doctor. Here, Clara's having the inverse. She's going from, fancying the 11th Doctor to now dealing with this incarnation. She doesn't quite understand him. Alright, it's a whole new experience for her. And some people have argued, well, she's seen the Doctor regenerate before. No, she hasn't. She knows there are multiple Doctors, but she's never had to deal with her own Doctor changing. and what that actually means for it. That's why that first episode, like, okay, he's different. He has looked renewed. So the understanding of, well, total cellular regeneration. Every cell in his body is supposed to be rejuvenated. From Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi, it doesn't look like a rejuvenation. It looks more like he rapidly aged gracefully. The nicest way to put it. And so Clara now has to deal with a doctor who looks physically different, but you would also guess feels physically different. Where the 11th Doctor is sort of, out there with his feelings, except the ones he likes to sort of keep guarded, Clara has to realize that what the Doctor has done, as Vasher points out, is put himself out there by looking older. And Clara now has to sort of redefine her relationship, so has to reassess her relationship with the Doctor. And that's fun. Honestly, it was bound to happen. We saw this with Perry going from 5 to 6, and that debacle, which turned out great at the end of it. You have the third Doctor, you have Sarah Jane going from 3 to 4. You have, I cannot remember the name, that went from 1 to 2. Let's see here, who else? Mel went from 6 to 7, and each of them have had to deal with the fact that Doctor is a very different character than he was 2 minutes ago. Not only does he look different, his personality is different, and Clara has to sort of deal with this. The change now is he's so radically different from the 11th Doctor that Moffat, I think, may have been right to include this scene here. That excessive as this whole scene can feel, it is sort of important for the audience and Clara, and because Clara as a companion is the audience surrogate, to sort of get that confirmation because of how radically different this incarnation is. And I think it works for what it's trying to do. The idea that, this was the same guy on the phone. Like, I was him. All right, I made that phone call. You were talking to me. All right, and Clara has trouble sort of seeing that. And over the course of the story, we're going to see Clara and the Doctor sort of reform and sort of rebuild their dynamic, and I think it's a good dynamic. I think another difference is that, where with the 11th Doctor, the big thing was the mystery of Clara. Now Clara's dealing with the mystery of the Doctor. She is now sort of having to try to figure out who this incarnation is, who he is, and if this is a person that she can trust. And there's going to be some ups, some downs, some great performances from Jenna Coleman, including a great falling out that really should have been kept. Ultimately, I think it's a great dynamic. Effectively, it is sort of like Sherlock and John Watson, with the fact that, Clara has to be the normal one of the dynamic. She has to remind the Doctor to be a bit human, and sometimes that can be a bit much. But really, at the end of it, Clara has two dynamics here, and I think one sort of hurts it in the beginning. And that's her relationship with Danny Pink. Now, I like the idea of this dynamic, but it does sort of feel a bit forced. Like, Clara doesn't want to tell the Doctor about Danny, or Danny about the Doctor. And granted, you wouldn't really tell anybody about the Doctor, because until you get them to the TARDIS and inside the box, you just sound crazy. Alright? But keeping him a secret from the Doctor really felt a bit contrived. Alright? Now, ultimately, it did sort of seem to go with the route, well, the Doctor doesn't like soldiers, so I'm going to hide the fact that I'm dating a soldier. And it just felt kind of stupid, because I still didn't get where the idea of the Doctor's dislike for soldiers came from. Alright, I was hoping we'd left that alone with the Tennant era. But apparently, the first Tennant era. Dear God. But it's sort of alright as Clara tries to have the best of both worlds. But the problem is she's never really forced to choose, nor does she commit to a choice. Honestly, if you go from Danny's perspective, her time with the Doctor has made her a more capable person, but also kind of a bad person. So, like, in The Force of the Night, Clara sort of is more interested in the mystery than keeping the kids safe. And Danny sort of calls her out for it. At the same time, Clara doesn't really want to address that. The fact that, maybe traveling with the Doctor is turning her into something she doesn't like. or wouldn't like. Honestly, it's hard to give that up. So to give up the fact that, hey, all of time and space, why would you give that up? And then with all her experience, sort of being able to sort of take charge, she kind of doesn't want to give that up either. And when forced to choose, though, she will pick Danny. It was effectively a longer version of Amy's choice. And that's kind of it. The difference is, though, she's punished for it. Honestly, in a parallel way to Amy. So Amy ultimately chooses Rory twice. Alright? In the episode Amy's Choice, and of course, the Angels Take Manhattan, where she decides to leave the Doctor to be with Rory, or to take the chance of being with Rory. Here, Clara has decided that, she will betray the Doctor if it means she can save Danny Pink. And, okay, fine. But then we sort of keep going. And we see that Clara without Danny is kind of unstable. It's like on some level she knew she needs Danny to keep her from being totally like the Doctor, or thinking she's like the Doctor, which does end up in her death. Of her thinking, with the Doctor, Doctor and Clara and the Doctor, I'm just as capable as he is on some level. And, I can, take dangerous risks. Oh, I can't, and I died. Oh, wow, who'd have thought? But what's great about Clara is the fact that at her core, she cares about people. And not just oh, people are nice. No. Even when she's about to die, her response is to the Doctor, don't go crazy. Alright, you're going to be mad, you're going to be angry. You don't turn that fury on the world. Alright? Just don't. Just be a Doctor. Alright? So, it is a fun dynamic that Clara and the Doctor have that ultimately leads to the nightmare that is the hybrid story, and then Clara not dying after dying, which, to be fair, is kind of sums up Clara's entire life. Hey, I'm born, I die, I do it again. So basically, yeah. Effectively, with Clara, it all depends on what you like. If you like the mystery aspect of Clara, where you don't quite know who or what she is, you might enjoy the 11th Doctor's era with her more. But if you like more back and forth sort of partnership, where she does, in essence, kind of mother the Doctor, this might be it for you. Or to see exactly how far and how dangerous the dynamic is between the Doctor and a companion. I can sort of take leave either one. To me, it's all one big story when it comes to Clara, so I'd have to take both. But I do sort of enjoy the 11 and Clara dynamic a bit more. Next we have her boyfriend, Danny Pink. Dan Pink. Pinky Dan. That one sounds gross. With Danny, you have to sort of realize where Doctor Who's been when it comes to their male companions, which at this point is kind of trash. I mean, really. Is Danny even really a companion? That is another question, too. Because technically, Danny's never really traveled in the TARDIS, except for in the Forest of the Night. But if only traveling in the TARDIS once makes you a companion, then all those kids were companions. Do we really need to do that? No. But Danny suffers the same issue that Mickey and Rory had, in the fact that they are the +1 to the companion. Like the Doctor, you can bring one person with you in the ship, alright? Your boyfriend. Okay. Well, if your Mickey is sort of like the not boyfriend, but whatever. You get what I'm saying, though, right? There's no reason for any of them to travel outside the fact their girlfriend wants to go. Now, granted, by the time the 10th Doctor's there, Mickey just wanted to be part of it, but he also was just totally still kind of in his feelings about Rose, quietly dumping him for the Doctor. And Rory spent most of his era kind of unsure whether or not Amy preferred him over the Doctor, and Amy didn't help. Okay? So we've had this sort of weird love triangle dynamic, and I think it's hurt the male companions the most. Really, the last time we had an interesting male companion was, up to this point, was what? Turlo? For the TV show, anyway. We still have Hex in the audios, or had Hex in the audios, and Hex is like Rory times 10. Alright? But, coming back to Danny is interesting because, unlike Rory and Mickey, Danny's already had his great adventure. Danny already is an accomplished person. He's seen the world, he's toured, he's shot a kid, And, he just wants a sense of normalcy to his life. He wants to sort of try to move past that. This puts him in a different position than, say, Rory and Mickey. Rory and Mickey were sort of in a relationship with this person, and then the Doctor comes along. For Mickey, it's the inverse, all right? His girlfriend already had and still has a relationship with the Doctor, and he's the newcomer. And he's trying to adjust to all this with his new life and his own issues. And the problem is, though, Danny's a soldier. And for some reason, this Doctor really hates soldiers. And it leads to, I think, a very interesting discussion between Danny and the Doctor. It's actually the only really interesting discussion.
Time Lords, do you salute those?
Definitely not.
Oh, sir!
And you do not call me sir.
As you wish, sir, absolutely, sir!
And you can get out of my
TARDIS! Oh, immediately, sir!
Doctor, this is stupid. This is unfair.
One thing, Clara. I'm a soldier, guilty as charged. You see him? He's an officer.
I am not an officer.
I'm the one who carries you out of the fire. He's the one who lights it.
Out, no.
Right away, sir. Straight now.
Yes.
Am I dismissed?
Yes, you are!
That's him. Look at him right now. That's who he is.
Yeah, it's weird. It's fun. And it sort of sets up the idea about how this Doctor operates and how this Doctor sees himself. Alright, he's very much someone who's trying to still shake off the Time War, which is because Danny's trying to effectively move past his Time War. Shooting that kid. And his dynamic with Clara is sort of trying, in a lot of ways, the 11th and 10th Doctors, or the 11th and 9th Doctor, sort of helped Rose and Amy see their boyfriends differently. Alright? Granted, Rose seemed to have no respect for Mickey, up until the episode where it turns out he's gonna leave. And Amy sort of has to learn to appreciate and commit to Rory, which I think Moffat didn't really handle well, but he said enough about that as it is. I think we already discussed our rewrite of that last time. But with Danny, he's sort of helping Clara see the Doctor for who he is. Does it work? Does it not? That depends on who you ask and how you really interpret how Clara views the Doctor over the course of Season 8. I don't think it did, but I think it really did help the Doctor sort of understand himself. And I think that was where sort of Danny sort of forces a mirror on the Doctor, which he does again, comes to Head, Death, and Heaven, when he reveals, to like, hey, if you want to find out that information, you're going to have to shut me down. You're going to have to turn off my emotions. And the Doctor can't do it himself, and Danny says, this is who he is, alright? He'll get you to do it. He'll get you to do the morally reprehensible things, but he won't bring himself to do it. And I thought that was a good moment. It was a good moment. And you can make a case that is one of the Doctor's problems. Ultimately, with Danny, though, I always feel the story is a bit underdone. I think his PTSD could have been played a bit more. I think the story could have used more focus on Danny as a character, and less about the mystery of the role Danny plays later on, just for him to be killed off. Then turn to a Cyberman. Yeah. I don't know what it is with the BBC and Doctor Who and black people in the Cybermen. I don't know, man. There was Ricky the Idiot, Martha's cousin, now this one. Craig did become a Cyberman. But anyway, with Danny, it's sort of a love-or-hate thing. I think he's the one companion in the era that needed a rewrite. He needs something else to do here other than what's involved with Clara. I think In the Force of the Night should have been a bit more focused on Danny's dynamic. Like, maybe Danny is hyper-obsessed with keeping the kids safe in The Force of the Night. Alright? And that he really is trying to compensate for his failing there. But then that sort of removes the big reveal later as to what Danny did. So there's that. Ultimately, though, Danny is the man who's come home and just wants a sense of normalcy. And he ain't getting it. So we have Bill and Nardole. So here's the thing. Nardole is really just funny. That's kind of it. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to talk about an interesting character, it's not really Nardole. Nardole, on the surface, though, is what I look for in a companion. Alright? Or at least every now and then, a companion that actually knows what's going on, for the most part. Isn't as smart as a Doctor, but, isn't from present-day Earth. He's from the future. He's from another planet. So he knows other things going on. He's not just waiting for the doctor to say something. Actually, no, I know about this too. Alright? That's sort of it. He is pretty much a holdover from the Husbands of Forever song, so like or hate that episode, it is what it is. He's funny. I don't hate his character, but he's not that interesting. He's pretty much the same person from the beginning of his first appearance to his last one. Alright, his whole point is he's the Doctor's caretaker, which this Doctor seems to need a lot more of, because Clara was basically the Doctor's caretaker, and now Nardole is. But really, the main companion of the last season was Bill Potts, played by Pearl Mackie. And I like Pearl. I like Bill. But if I had to say there was a problem with Bill, it was that we didn't see the proper payoff of her era. In other words, this felt like we were rediscovering the Seventh Doctor and Ace dynamic. We have a companion here who also has a bit of Rose to her, but granted, pretty much every modern companion tends to take a lot from Ace. But with Bill, it sort of feels like she, like Rose, is in need of direction. She feels like she wants more from life. She meets this larger-than-life character who guides her through. The difference is, though, Bill is just also hilarious. Like when Bill first sees the TARDIS.
Any questions?
Is this a knock-through?
Well, in a way, yes.
Look at this place. It's like a
Spaceship.
kitchen.
What?
A really posh kitchen, all metal. What happened with the doors, though? Do you run out of money?
What you are standing in is a technological marvel. It is science beyond magic. This is the gateway to everything that ever was, or ever can be.
Can I use the toilet?
Love it. Love it. Bill is also a lesbian. You're going to hear that a lot throughout the course of pretty much every other episode. And on the surface, like, if you cut down the references to her being a lesbian, they're not played up for comic relief. I love good comic relief. I would say it's fine. Like, Bill's a lesbian. Nothing really changes about her character. We just know for a fact that these two aren't going to fall in love. So, great. I hate companion falls in love with Doctor trope. All right, I've got some weak spots. I'll admit, I do. Look, 11 Clara, yeah, I hate myself for that one. I'm not gonna lie. 8 and Charlie, I will die on the 8 and Charlie hill. The problem, Bill is sort of. What's interesting about Bill is that you can make her connection to Clara, in the fact that where Clara's first season is about her understanding the Doctor, this new Doctor she has in her life. Bill is sort of here to sort of understand the greater world, the greater universe, really. There's a lot of stuff she gets to see that other companions just don't. Like Alpha Centauri, Icemen, Ice Warriors. Who are Icemen? Daleks, Mavellans. You know, who was crying for the Mavellans to show up in Dawn 2 again? Wasn't me. Bunch of Prince rejects. But anyway. No, Rick. No. Ultimately, what I like about Bill is how she sort of responds to everything. There are moments when things leave her with more questions than answers, and she tries to sort of push back a bit. She tries to understand the world around her. I think the dynamic with her mother was a bit underdone, because Bill never got to know her mother. It's a sort of similar to Rose and Pete Tyler, but where Rose got a whole episode with her dad, and then a dad from another Earth. Bill just sort of like, I don't even know what my mom looks like, and my adoptive mom seems kind of terrible for some reason. I never understood that. But Bill is more interesting than her story made her. And then, of course, we have the whole, we made her a Cyberman. Oh, God. Now, to be fair, like Sam Anderson as Danny Pink, Pearl Mackie's Bill Potts does a great job as being turned into a Cyberman. Hers is more interesting, though, because she doesn't realize she's a Cyberman. She has to sort of come to terms with the fact she is a Cyberman, a Mondasian-era Cyberman at that, so it's even more horrifying. her trying to figure out who she is as everyone reacts to her. That to me, I always felt was fun. But what Bill wants, I think, is hard to figure out, other than the fact she just wants to improve herself. And I think maybe that didn't work. But I think on another problem that Ace did better was she was able to put all of that training and knowledge into practice. The idea that we can actually see that Ace is not the same person that the Doctor met on Ice World. And that she'll become in Survival and in the multitude of other stories. Ace on Gallifrey. Love it. Love it. Ultimately, though, Bill, Danny, Clara, these are not the standouts. These are not the MVPs of the Moffat era for characters. It's Missy.
I'm Missy.
Who's Missy?
Please try to keep up. Short for mistress. Well, couldn't very well keep calling myself the master. Now could I?
I love Michelle Gomez as Missy. She is... If you had to cast a female master, it would have to be this. It would have to be Michelle Gomez. Like, not even Missy. It just has to be Michelle Gomez. Like, whatever direction you want to take, it has to be Michelle Gomez. If it doesn't end with Michelle Gomez, throw it out, try again, and end it with Michelle Gomez. What's interesting about this is that, first of all, Moffat's been teasing this for years. Alright, he's been teasing the Doctor can regenerate into a woman at some point. Alright, did he predict Jodie Whittaker? No, but he did in essence lay the groundwork to get the audience ready for it. He's had the Doctor think that he was a girl. When he just regenerated, he's mentioned the Corsair, a Time Lord that changed sex when they regenerated. So he's put the ideas in there. So now he has to physically show it. So, well, I don't really care to do the Ronnie, although this story might have been better for the Ronnie. Let's do the Master and let's make the Master a woman. And actually, it doesn't matter if it's a woman, as long as it's Michelle Gomez. There we go. And Michelle Gomez, I think, does a better job of playing crazy than John Sim did. I think Michelle Gomez has the eyes for it. It's just brilliant. She does that perfect blend of crazy and dangerous at the same time. It's just so much fun watching Missy work, but even more so how the dynamic changes, and even as it goes on. So season 8 starts off with Missy trying to prove to the Doctor that they're not so different. Alright?
Why are you doing this?
I need you to know we're not so different. I need my friend back.
Missy wants her friend back. And season 9 is Missy sort of defining her friendship with the Doctor to Clara.
We've been at it for ages.
It must be love.
Oh, don't be disgusting. We're Time Lords, not animals. Try, nano-brain, to rise above the reproductive frenzy of your noisy little food chain and contemplate friendship. A friendship older than your civilization and infinitely more complex.
Good times. Good times. And it all comes crashing down again later for the 12th Doctor trying to prove to Missy that they aren't so different. They're in different positions than they were before. And this is sort of, I think, where Moffat tries to really show off his writing chops a bit here, where a lot of characters sort of in different positions than their counterparts were in the beginning of Capaldi's run. So there's that. I think someone did a video where the 12th Doctor is the 11th Doctor's era in reverse, and I think that's an interesting way to look at it. Ultimately, though, the 12th Doctor will not know that he was right about Missy, that Missy can be good. Because Missy decided to, met possibly the worst version of herself, not in terms of acting, just, Jacoby's master would not have, probably would have helped the Doctor, but just to prove that he's better than Cybermen. No. Cybermen? No. Over my dead body will they beat me. But by meeting sort of an older version of herself who also hates the Doctor, it does sort of make her fall into a trap, but she does do the right thing in the end. ultimately, I like Missy because she's complex, she's layered, and she hides all of it beneath this beautiful, beautiful mask of insanity. Love it. Like, you love to hate her, you hate to love her, and I still can't get into a big finish audios. I think it tries, though. It tries. It's fun, but I just can't. Finally, let's get to the 12th Doctor himself. And honestly, we didn't deserve Peter Capaldi. I'm sorry. You all know it's true. This man's performance was nothing short of brilliant. Alright? Playing a sort of incarnation that we hadn't really seen before in Doctor Who. Alright? We see an incarnation that is sort of unapologetically himself. So the whole idea of the 11th Doctor's regeneration, the whole idea that he's accepted everything, alright, that he's accepted the Time War, the loss of Rose, the loss of Amy and Rory. He's no longer going, I've moved on. Like, no, I'm staying here, alright, I will remember every bit of this. And he's now regenerating. He's effectively grown up. Alright, he's no longer trying to fit in or be cool. And that is sort of why the 11th Doctor said to Clara, he needs you more than you need him. Alright, he's confused, he's scared, because in this new incarnation, there's none of the things he used to hide, to blend in. He's not young, he's not conventionally handsome. Although,
call somebody like that the silver fox.
At the same time, though, what's important is he's not your boyfriend. He's not this dashing, beautiful hero who goes around saying all the right things to make you feel special. No, he thinks a lot of what you do is ridiculous, and he's going to tell you that. Or he doesn't really care about your feelings or any of that. What matters is, when we're traveling here, is I keep you safe. Alright? That's sort of it. He doesn't care about your feelings, he doesn't care that he may seem a bit callous sometimes, because at the end of the day, when we're in the thick of it, if you know, you know, what's going to matter is me finding out as much as possible to get you and as many people out of here safely.
And you know what happens if I don't move on? More people die. There are kids living rough near here. They may well be next on the menu. Do you want to help me? Do you want to stand here, stamping your foot? Because let me tell you something, I'm 2,000 years old, and I've never had the time for the luxury of outrage.
And it works, but at the same time, though, this is an incarnation that is trying to figure out who he is. Because the Doctor, as a whole, did not expect to survive Trenzalore. He was totally ready to die there. So now here he is. Not only did he not die, he has a whole new regeneration cycle. This incarnation was not supposed to exist. So who is he? He poses the question, is he a good man? Season 8 is about the 12th Doctor trying to figure out what kind of man he is. He comes face to face with Danny. He comes face to face with heroes like Robin Hood. He comes face to face with a Dalek who says, I see nothing but hatred in you. Or I see pure hatred. So the Doctor's trying to figure out, okay, what does that say about me? Alright, he tells Clara that you were an excellent Doctor. Goodness had nothing to do with it. Sort of puts his stamp on there as to how he views what it means to be the Doctor. And then, of course, he comes to that realization as to who he is in Death in Heaven.
I am not a good man. I'm not a bad man. I am not a hero. I'm definitely not a president. And no, I'm not an officer. You know what I am? I am an idiot with a box and a screwdriver.
The whole idea is that, you know, forget trying to figure out if I'm a good man or a bad man or an officer or anything. I'm just a dude with a screwdriver, traveling about, helping, learning, all of that. You know, I'm thinking too hard. I'm the Doctor, and whatever that means. And we'll find out what that means in season 9. So season 9 does this thing that Moffat likes to do, which is make the Doctor larger than life. And that seems a bit bad. honestly, like the idea of the Doctor was space Jesus. But Moffat's trying to play around with that a bit more, where Russell pretty much did his whole the Doctor's basically the chosen one. Moffat played with the idea that the Doctor, over the course of all his adventures, has built a reputation for himself. He's a hero across all of time and space. Alright? Hence the Church of the Silence, taking Amy and her baby to turn into a weapon against him. So, with the 12th Doctor, that legend has sort of been reset, but at the same time not reset by the time we get there. But the question now is, he's the Doctor. Who is the Doctor? And 12 at that point, I think, is trying to embrace the idea that, he is a bit of a hero. But then he comes face to face with a young Davros, and he can't do it. He then finds out that, he's not worthy to be the Doctor. And in The Magician's Apprentice, which is familiar, we get that great conversation between 12 and Davros about the Doctor.
What brought you here?
There's no such thing as the Doctor. I'm just a bloke in a box, telling stories. And I didn't come here because I'm ashamed. A bit of shame never hurt anyone. I came because you're sick and you asked. And because sometimes, on a good day, if I try very hard, I'm not some old Time Lord who ran away.
It's a great moment that also echoes the sort of idea of superheroes. Alright? Batman doesn't really exist. He's just a scared billionaire. Alright? Who didn't grow up with the death of his parents. Superman doesn't exist. He's just some farm boy from Kansas. Some adopted farm boy from Kansas. Alright? Wonder Woman, that's a whole other issue. Hal Jordan's just a guy with a ring. Jon Stewart's just a Marine. Hal Jordan's a member of the Air Force with a ring. Jon Stewart's a Marine with a ring. Guy Gardner's a failed cop with a ring. Kyle Rander's an art student. At some point they just drop the whole service idea. But they, like the Doctor, all try to be something more than just, who they really are. The Doctor sort of did it by accident, but he does sort of believe that, he has an obligation to do that. And failing that with a young Davros let him sort of be like, I'm not worthy to be the Doctor anymore. And then he sort of comes out of that. In other words, he sort of moved past this huge legend of the Doctor. As a matter of fact, this season is a lot about the Doctor stepping away from that high standard he holds from himself. He's not like, you know what? No. There are moments when he's not sure of himself. He's not always as confident. He's not always interested as playing off as the one always in control. It's like, it gets a bit tiring. And of course, when people are lost, he then, becomes something scary. Hence, Face the Raven.
You will save Clara, and you will do it now, or I will rain hell on you for the rest of time.
Doctor, stop talking like that. You can't.
I can do whatever the hell I like. You've read the stories. You know who I am. And in all of that time, did you ever hear anything about anyone who stopped me?
I know the Doctor. The Doctor...
The Doctor is no longer here. You are stuck with me. And I will end you and everything you love.
The Doctor's not here not now. The Doctor's not here now. You aren't stuck with me. And of course, there's a scene in the Zygon Invasion, Zygon Inversion, where at some point he sort of steps away from the mystery, from the allure of the Doctor. He's like, I just want you all to stop fighting. Alright? And a lot of what Moffat tries to do is sort of separate the idea from the idea of the Doctor to the actual character, alright? That's how we view the Doctor as an invincible superhero, and how it really is. He's just a dude with a screwdriver. Alright? He may not have all the answers. He may not always be able to win. Alright? And that'll play a role later on, but it does sow the seeds for stuff later on. And by the time we get to season 10, we sort of see an incarnation that sort of embraced a little bit of everything. Like, he's accepting the fact that, he's the Doctor. The Doctor goes out doing the best he can to save as many people as he can, to help out. All right, he's not perfect. He's not a superhero in the same sense, but he'll do his best to make people believe in superheroes. A lot of season 8 and 9 culminate in season 10 for the 12th Doctor. 8, 9, 10, 12. Weird. But one could argue that this is sort of where it all comes crumbling down for the 12th Doctor. Primarily just because of what happens in The Doctor Falls. In The Doctor Falls, we see the cynical Doctor sort of really want to get his best friend to change. Alright, like, I need you to see that we're not so different. Alright, and he puts a lot into not just Missy, but also that Bill can rise to the occasion. The Doctor doesn't realize that he's right on both counts. He was right with Bill, he was right with Missy, but he does fall. And by the end of that whole time, he considers not regenerating. So this is the Doctor being a bit suicidal, because you can't not regenerate. It's either you regenerate or you die. Alright? So, or you find a hand in a jar and do that. So then we come to Twice Upon a Time, where the Doctor meets his first incarnation. I hate the Thomas Child so much. And he finds his new resolve to live by meeting his first incarnation and dealing with the fact that he's afraid of regenerating. And sort of the mystery of the Doctor, like at that point he has sort of embraced how people view the Doctor. But then has to explain that version, like that idea of himself, to his first incarnation, who was like, what? It is sort of fun as this incarnation finds the will to live. It's interesting because when I look at the 12th Doctor, I do sort of feel a bit like the 6th Doctor a bit. The fact that, he's a bit uncaring on the surface, a bit prickly. But at the end of the day, he cares a lot about the people around him. He cares a lot about everyone in the room, and he wants to get as many of them out as possible. There's a bit of pragmatism to him. But there's also elements of the 3rd Doctor. He's a bit witty. He's a bit a mash of a bunch of different skills. He's an incarnation that sort of, I think I said it best, he's unapologetically himself. But that cynicism had to come from somewhere. In a lot of ways, he is a sort of retread of the 9th Doctor, because he is sort of stripped down. But in this case, where the 9th Doctor is constantly moving to avoid looking at his past, the 12th Doctor is sort of trying to really wrestle with it. Wrestle with his trauma from the Time War. Wrestle with, trying to be more like how he used to be before the Time War. Every other incarnation before this is trying to act like the Time War didn't happen, that he wasn't involved in it, like he didn't do the thing. And it's affected the character negatively in some of the best ways possible. He is more anti-gun he's ever been. He dislikes the military. Alright? He is averse to anyone questioning his moral compass. These are all things seen in the 9th, 10th, and 11th incarnations. The 12th Doctor attempts to sort of, resolve all of that. Like, look, guns are stupid, alright? Stupid people with guns cause problems, alright? He still has his weird issues with the military that I don't think are ever really discussed in an interesting sort of way. But, yeah, when events like the Zygon invasion, Zygon inversion, he's trying to avoid the war. He's trying to do everything to stop the war from happening, alright? Coming back to Gallifrey, he's willing to turn Gallifrey upside down because that episode was stupid. And Claus should have just stayed dead. But overall, there is a lot to like about the 12th Doctor because he gets so much to do as a character. He gets so much to do, to be, to represent. The 12th Doctor is the culmination of everything from the episode Rose to Twice Upon a Time. Alright, everything from Rose to Day of the Doctor. And you can even go the obvious one, Time of the Doctor. The character has sort of reached this new level. I said before, he's closing this chapter on his life to start a new one. The whole point of a new regeneration cycle is a whole new lease on life. That the Doctor is trying to wrestle what that means. Does that mean he's different? Does that mean he can be more the same? He can be less the same? Does that mean that he can finally put some of this hurt away and hope to be accepted as he is? Like, he's not always happy and joyful and wanting to be a kid. All right, he doesn't want to always talk a million miles a minute. Sometimes you just like to, oh, no, we're not going to do that, and just go about his day. All right, he'd like to call people idiots, but at the same time, he still wants to, and still is, that incredibly kind and generous person who just wants to help people. All right, enough of that. Let's get down to the gems of the 12th Doctor's era. Deep Breath does a great job of solidifying the Doctor, this new incarnation. We have moments from Vastra explaining why the Doctor looks older. I think it's a better reasoning than we gave in The Girl Who Died, Woman Who Lived. So stupid. There's a great discussion the Doctor has with the Clockwork Man. Like, so you take a broom, all right, you replace the handle, then you replace the brush. Then you replace the brush, and then you replace the handle. You keep going and going and going and going. Is it the same broom? No, it's not. It's him. The Doctor is the broom. All right, he's changed so many times. He's not the same person he was in the junkyard with his granddaughter. It does a great job of selling the new Doctor, and how different he is, not just from his previous incarnation, but from pretty much the other incarnations before. Into the Dalek, the Doctor comes face to face with his greatest enemy, or his oldest enemy, ends going inside, because he found a Dalek that wants to destroy other Daleks. And it's like, if I can figure out what made him do that, I can make the other ones want to kill Daleks. And then we just have Daleks killing Daleks. Alright? It works. Alright? But what's interesting about that is, in itself, the Doctor's trying to create another war just among the Daleks, and fittingly, he gets to face his own hatred. Big surprise, the Doctor hates things. But he sort of wonders, can good people hate people? Can good people hate anything? That's his big question there. If I think from the Doctor's perspective, hatred isn't in good people. So if he has it, he can't be a good person. Mummy on the Orient Express is beautiful. On premise alone, it is brilliant. There's a mummy. That mummy's on a train, and that train is in space. Love it. Love every minute of it. Love Fox says I am a simp for that woman. But anyway, it's sort of good because Clara has to sort of... This is after Clara and the Doctor have their falling out. Clara is sort of forced to sort of re-examine how her relationship with the Doctor worked. And that's, again, is what Season 8 is for Clara. Trying to figure out exactly how her dynamic with the Doctor is supposed to work, as well as she's trying to move on to this new level in her life. Darkwater, Death in Heaven is great. Missy does a great job. Michelle Gomez, as I said, sells herself as the Master. Is it a perfect take on the Master? Depends on who you ask. I would say, I think the biggest issue was she should have just called herself the Master. I think that would have worked. Because you know, the parts are different. I have to call myself Missy now. But she's so beautifully evil. Like, oh my god, it's great. It's great, and I love it. This is actually one of my favorite Cybermen stories. I didn't realize it. Granted, the whole bit with the Cyber Brigadier was a bit much. I think I would have just cut that whole thing out and just done something different. The Magician's Apprentice, which is familiar, is the Doctor on Skaro with Davros, and Missy and Clara have their own adventures. It is one part amazing discussions about the nature of the Daleks, about hatred, about saving your home, shame, guilt, and on the other side, the wacky machinations of Missy and Clara. It's just so much fun. And Sonic Shades are introduced. Love them or hate them. I kind of hate them. Zygon Inversion is effectively the sequel to Day of the Doctor. Alright, or the follow-up to Day of the Doctor. I wouldn't call it a sequel. But the whole idea is that all that work the Doctor did to stop humans and Zygons from fighting is now under threat by, well, a splinter group of Zygons. And the Doctor has to try to prevent this great war from happening. Again, effectively trying to stop another Time War. Scale's not the same, but the premise is. And the Doctor is sort of forced to bare his soul a bit about what happened during the Time War, what it did to him, and why... One thing all the Doctors had post-Time War is that this is not happening again. Alright? Not on my watch. It's sort of emphasizing the importance of Day of the Doctor, or at least what the War Doctor did. Face the Raven and Heaven Sent are beautifully fun episodes. If for no other reason, Capaldi has one of the best costumes ever in that episode. But this is just 45 minutes of Peter Capaldi acting. And by God, is it beautiful. Alright, seeing the Doctor deal with grief and loss of Clara and wondering if he should keep going on, facing his own personal fears and trials, it is just really good stuff. And like I said, we didn't deserve Peter Capaldi. Peter Capaldi is arguably, I'd like to see anyone contradict this, the best New Who actor. Just is. I would probably say Matt Smith after that. But you know, who knows. I ultimately think this is not the best introduction to Doctor Who, but it is something that rewards those who I think really wanted something more mature from Doctor Who. Like, there's no point in making the Doctor more vulnerable, more stripped down to his bare bones if you don't do something like this. Pilot is a great attempt to reboot Doctor Who. It actually is. Like, there's no reason to call it Pilot. I mean, there's like another reason, but no. It is a good jumping on point for new people to get into Doctor Who. We see monsters like the Mavellans, who we'll probably never see again, so I hope you enjoy that one scene. We introduce our companion. There's a little bit of history that I think makes the character more accessible for, like, the amount of history I don't think takes away from it. Like, it's not too intimidating. But it's just enough to make you want to see the stuff that happened before. And that is sort of how you want to do it. Also, Bill is great. Bill's hilarious. Smile. I was a bit torn on this one. I really was. Because I didn't have that great a memory of it before. I was actually going to put Thin Ice up here, but I really only like Thin Ice because of Capaldi. And I'm like, no, I want something where I like Bill and the 12th Doctor. And I think Bill just sort of... she shines better in Smile. Smile, alright? Basically the arc in space. But the problem now is emojis. That sounds so terrible when you say it out loud. Because the arc in space, the problem is not emojis. But overall, it was a really fun episode. The robots are adorable, but at the same time, deadly dangerous. I couldn't stop watching this episode. And I think it's a good Base Under Siege story for Doctor Who fans. The Monk trilogy, I think, is just ambitious, and I will award an ambitious story over any other kind of story. Like, I appreciate if the story is weak to decent, but has an ambitious idea behind it. 3-part story, monks invade, police state. The first episode is basically retconned out. I can't help but love the effort and care for this. Go big or go home is how Stephen Moffat operates. All right. If we crash, but we all had fun watching that crash. All right, that's what separates your Stephen Moffats and your Russell T Davies from your Chris Chibnalls, and apparently Russell T Davies. But that's kind of what I like when Doctor Who does that. All right, swing for the fences. It's best to fail at doing something remarkable than to succeed at doing the mundane, especially when you compare it to the mundane. We'll get to that when we get to that. Wold Enough in Time and the Doctor Falls. Alright, so this is nothing short of what almost feels to be the epitome of high science for Doctor Who. Well, not the epitome of high science. It's still like the invention of death. That's an audio, though. But here, we arrive on a space station that's sort of caught in a black hole. So time moves differently at the front and the back. Alright, so that's just such a cool idea. The Doctor is trying to rehabilitate Missy, effectively trying to get his friend back, trying to make it so they can be friends and they can travel through all of time and space again. Alright? So he's invested in that. It sort of is the other story to this whole thing. At the same time, though, we find Cybermen from all eras coming through, training, evolving, and just getting more and more deadly as the Doctor has to make the ultimate sacrifice. Again, what's interesting about this episode is, and even more so, Moffat's era, is that he really does want to emphasize that the Cybermen are probably better than the Daleks when it comes to killing the Doctor. Like, really, when's the last time the Daleks actually killed the Doctor? You can go with Stolen Earth story. It's kind of it. Like, Time of the Doctor, it's all the time he spent on Trenzalore, and then the Daleks showed up at the end. So you know what? I'm not going to give him that one. The Cybermen, meanwhile, are responsible for the death of the First Doctor. They're responsible for the death of Adric. They were one part of it, so I'll give it to the Daleks and the Cybermen for getting rid of Rose Tyler. They converted one. They converted Danny Pink. They converted Bill. They really got it out for black people, and now they made the Doctor. They've killed another Doctor. They've been involved in the death of another Doctor as the primary antagonist. What's interesting about the Doctor Falls is that while he falls, a lot of what he did succeeded. He saved the people on the space station. He did what he was able to get Missy to change her ways. Granted, she died at the end of it, but whatever. Bill got a happily ever after. It does work on some level. So I do like that. Like, it's the death of the Doctor, but in all the best ways possible. He dies in victory. And finally, we have Twice Upon a Time. The First Doctor meeting the 12th Doctor. And it's a fun dynamic as the 12th Doctor sort of finds his will to keep going by meeting his earlier incarnation. Looking back on this episode, it's not as bad as people said it was. First of all, David Bradley as the First Doctor was great. He doesn't play William Hartnell. He plays David Bradley as the First Doctor, and I think that's still just as good. There's a lot less words being jumbled together, a bit less crotchety, but I think it works for what the First Doctor thinks of himself as. So I think that works. A lot of people, including me, were a bit off-put by some of how the First Doctor acts, but looking back on it, really is about the 12th Doctor overreacting to the First Doctor. Like, he's so bad, like, oh my god, it's so cringe. What do you mean? No, you can't say Paula needs to be dusting. But to be fair, as far as the First Doctor knew, Polly was still dusting in the TARDIS. Okay, makes sense. Now the woman made of glass, that one was cringe. The smack bottom bit. Look, you don't curse, or is it like I don't care who said it? The next one he does, it's a smack bottom. All right, it's fun. It's also about these two incarnations sort of comforting each other as they journey to the next exciting phase of their life. The First Doctor is about to regenerate into the Second Doctor, and the show's really going to get crazy after that. The 12th Doctor is sort of realizing... Actually, what's interesting is he's not sure at the end, but he makes, I think, the most realistic choice, because this is a man who effectively contemplated not living anymore. And he says, like, you know what? Let's make one more go around and see what happens. All right, there's no, I have a will to live. Like, no, let's just give it one more go and see how we feel. All right? One day at a time, one life at a time. Overall, I think we don't appreciate the 12th Doctor as much as we should. But maybe that's not entirely true. I think with the 12th Doctor, what we get is an era that is really more than the sum of its parts. It really is the Doctor going through a character arc of self-discovery. The character trying to figure out who he is after over 2,000 years and over a billion years. We see him sort of navigate not just who he is as an incarnation of the Doctor, but who the Doctor is as a whole. And then sort of bring all that together. It's kind of fitting that the whole point of it is he just feels so tired of going on. He's gone through a whole roller coaster of trying to figure out who he is, answering the question in a sort of interesting way. He sort of came up with the idea, like, I'm the Doctor. It's kind of it. And isn't that just remarkable? Overall, though, it's kind of fitting that some people tend to view this era as the last great era of Doctor Who, because overall it is phenomenal. There's a lot of good moments. There's some bad moments. Hybrid! Ugh. Girl who died! Woman who lived! I don't know what's in... Sleep no more! Gee. Don't know where that came from. It's like a bunch of crap was in my throat. And there are some really cringe lines. Is the future going to be female now? What does that mean? What does any of that mean? outside of the obvious, you taking outside politics into it. But overall, I enjoyed this era. I enjoyed it more than I did the first time, too. Peter Capaldi is an underappreciated Doctor. It's a shame that he doesn't really seem to want to come back. But then again, with the way the show's going, it might be for the best. They don't deserve Peter Capaldi. Or any of them. Alright? Just get to Big Finish. Alright? You too, Smith. You too. Whitaker's there before Smith out. Anyway, with that in mind, let's bring us to a close. If you're new to the Bug Authentic, feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe. What's your favorite 12th Doctor moment or episode? Let me know in the comment section. I'll catch you all later when we go over the Whitaker era. I know what I have to do, but I don't think I can do it. Now, this is the Bug Authentic signing off. Thanks for watching as always. May your fandom serve you well.